Hi, things. Long time no seen.
Oh, Jesus, I feel like being on a first date or something. Like I
Yeah.
haven't seen you for a really long time.
It's like what, like at least 8, 9 years ago, or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
think so.
Yeah, it's been a really long time. Good. How you been? You been good?
I've been good. Yeah, I moved from Croatia. Now I'm in Norway living like two and a
Really?
half years now. Yeah. So I'm good. Yeah.
Uh, Akkurat. They speak very weird in Norway, don't they? They sound like they're singing almost.
Yeah. It's like a weird thing. Norwegians have this thing about Swedish people, like they say they kind of swallow the sounds, and then Swedish people say for Norwegians they speak weirdly, like they sing. Yeah.
You know, I have a book called 101 Norwegian Jokes. So basically, all the jokes, I know all the jokes about Norwegian. It's like a standing thing we do, the Swedish and the Norwegians. We have this kind of love-hate relationship, you know?
Yeah.
So they say like, so this is a good example. So you have America, you have England, and you have Norway. So England builds the world's biggest, mental health institution. And America, we want to build even a bigger one, so to build double the size. And what Norway does, they put a roof all over Norway, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got so many of these jokes, it's crazy. I got like hundreds of
You have to share them with me so I can go around and make people hate me saying jokes about Norwegians.
So yeah, I'm still making music. Obviously, as you probably know as well, I'm not working with Simon anymore. We worked almost 20 years together, and then we decided to go different ways. I wanted something else in my life, and he wanted something. So we decided to do different things.
But so what is happening now with? I saw you have some projects like the Click. And that it was actually having a really good feedback back in 2019. I'm not completely aware of what you're doing now, but if you can tell me a bit more, what are the future plans and what's happening?
Yeah, so basically, yeah, as you said, I'm working with Click. It's another friend of mine called Robin, and he has his own project as well called Robin M. And then we've been friends for quite a long time before we started Click. And he's actually married to a really good old friend of mine called Mette. And she's been in the music industry for quite a long time. And, we've been friends for a very long time. And that's how we kind of met each other through his wife. And then we decided to start this project called Click, just something new, something fresh. It's kind of that kind of introducing kind of a bit of kind of urban sound into kind of house, and it's a very UK sounding sound basically, and it's done really, really well. The first single we had called Wavy we went into top 40 here in the UK, which is very good, and then we've been streaming a lot, so it's been really, really good. Obviously, when 2020 last year we were hit, so because we would start touring a lot. We did Ibiza, we did Ushuaia, we did quite a few festivals here in the UK. And then obviously when 2020 hit, as everybody else, basically, our touring is completely stopped, which is fine. But we now focusing on making music in the studio. So I've got my little studio here in London, just 5 minutes from my house. And he's got his studio as well in Archway in North London. So yeah, we meet once or twice a week. We make some music, and the rest of the time I'm here in my little room and just make music. So anything from producing other people to work on our own projects, and I got my own little disco project that I'm working on as well. So just
amazing.
Bits and bobs. So yeah,
I'm happy about that. I remember you like from that sound. I'm really happy you're going towards that way.
Yeah, no. So the thing is, for me, as music production is very versatile. I don't like to have one particular sound. I like to venture out in doing like we did with Click, was more urban kind of stuff, and then you have it more commercial kind of side of dance, and then you have the kind of more disco house. Yeah, so I don't want to lock it into one specific style. So But obviously house and that kind of old disco kind of has always been close to my heart because, you know, I've been doing it for a very long time. So house is always going to be, very close. So that's what I've been up to over the last few years. And and open up a restaurant. So I built a studio in the back of my restaurant. So my restaurant is just there.
Oh.
So this is a small, it's tiny little room. It's 12 square meter, kind of a little kind of, oops, you can't see fuck all because my finger's holding it, the camera, but it's a tiny little room. I just got a little sofa over there, got my synth over here, got some cool speakers going, and then got my restaurant. So if I want like a nice breakfast, I want a pizza or something like that, I just go into my ordering app on my phone and I just order the food, and then one of the girls comes out and give me the food. It's brilliant.
It's the dream.
I got my personal chef doing great food. Yeah, unfortunately now we're closed because of the lockdown. But we're looking to open again on the 13th of April, and then for only outdoor servings. And then we have on the 17th of May we can open inside, and on the 21st of June we can fully open everything without masks and the social distancing and stuff like that.
So that's Rubio, right? Your restaurant.
Rubio, that's right. Rubio means blondie in Spanish. And I grew up in Spain, and everybody used to call me Blondie because I was the only blonde in the village, basically. So, so when I was 8 to 16, I lived in Spain, basically. That's what I got the name from.
But do you want to tell me a bit more about the restaurant? Because I read...
Yeah, go on.
I read some stuff online that basically you are very passionate about food and you are very passionate about music. So you kind of combine your two loves together in a way.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So, I mean, as you know, I was in Shapeshifters for 16, 17 years with Simon. We had an amazing time. We toured around the world, Croatia many, many times. We absolutely loved it. And I think it reached a point in my life is that I just wanted to have a bit of a break, from the scene a little bit, just, sit in one place for a longer period of time. And, I've always been more a studio kind of person rather than touring DJ. I love touring. I love playing at parties. But my main passion, if I have to pick between DJing and producing, I will always be a producer, And I think I reached a point when we were touring so much, I felt like I wanted to have my feet on the ground for a bit longer in the studio, and that's why I decided I want to do something completely different. So let's do a restaurant, which is literally 5 minutes from my house, and that has like a musical tone to it. So we have DJ nights. We had Simon Dunmore. We had Reich, several DJs, coming down here to do gigs. But so I always kept that musical element, and obviously food. Who doesn't like food? Come on, we all eat food. So what I did brunch and lunch in the mornings, and then kind of pizzas, Italian kind of stuff in the evenings. So almost like two different restaurants in one kind of thing. And we do lots of with Uber and Deliveroo and all these kind of things. So a lot of takeaway and to the neighborhood, and then. But what I did, end of 2016, I opened Rubio, and I worked flat out 17. I mean, I never worked so hard in my life. And then I really have full respect for people that works in the hospitality industry, how bloody hard it is to earn, some money, because, we were touring, we did one gig and I earned as much as I worked my ass off for 2 months in the restaurant. It puts it in perspective, how difficult it is. So I don't know why I opened a restaurant when I'm looking back now, thinking about it. But luckily, it's done really well for me. So I've got 7 staff at the moment. And obviously, nobody is working at the moment because we closed. But the restaurant is doing pretty good. And the first year I had to be there. But after the second on the third year, I've stepped back. And I'm letting it kind of run by itself. I overlook it. I'll kind of micromanaging it, come in maybe once or twice a week to just make sure everything is okay. But obviously now I'm going to be more here because I just built a studio a few months ago. And so, so that's the kind of the restaurant side of it. And but when I was doing the restaurant, I always thought, you know, like I was connected to music, and I was missing music a little bit. So that's why we started Click a year. So literally, I had a year off making music almost, and then I created Click with the Bob. So when you music, it's very difficult to kind of stop, basically.
I know.
Yeah, as you probably know very well yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, and that's kind of it, really. And then, you know, and I think with inspiration, I think it goes in waves. You know, like 1 second you're loving it, and 1 second you're fed up, and you know you want to do something else. But I always find myself crawling back to music, you know, in a way. You know, even if you try to do other things. And you know, I've been doing music since I was like a baby almost. You know, I started I'm going to say I'm very, very old, but I bought my first turntables 88. You know, I started DJing 89. You know, and how I started it, I always loved music, and in 87 I heard "Pump Up the Volume" by Mars on radio, and I'm like, what the fuck, this is crazy good. I want to do something like this, and then that inspired me to kind of start buying turntables and you know, start DJing. And then I was working at this speaker company, manufacturing big kind of club speakers in this small town in Spain. And then I worked for free, but they gave me gear. So they gave me speakers and turntables. And after like, you know, a year working there, I had my kind of little setup. So I started doing my kind of school discos at my school, you know, and I was making like, I charged 250 pesetas. That's like 50p or 60p entry, you know. But with that money we collected, we did school trips. We went to Portugal, we went to, you know, other places in Spain, and that's how I grew into kind of liking house music. You know, it started when a hip house there, or DD International, Fast Eddie, all that kind of early hip house stuff that I was really in love with, and then that developed to what I'm doing today. So when you start so early and that's your passion, it's very difficult to kind of not kind of forget about it or kind of leave it for something else, you know. And, you know, I would not be able to have a normal job, you know. I would not be able to, I don't know. I don't know. I'm too old for someone to hire me anyway. So, okay. So that's a bit of my life. I can go into much more depth if you want, but
yeah,
you know.
Of course. I mean, you know, because always when people do these interviews, they're kind of they sound the same. It's like, oh, what are you doing now? Oh, what is your favorite tune at the moment? Oh, what are your plans? But I want to kind of know more, and I think it is inspiring for people to know more how people started, what is their drive, like what's happening behind the scenes, how do you like go into making a song, like what's your routine, what, you know, just like some details like that.
Yeah. So basically I always been a tech head. I've always, even when I was a kid, when I was like 8 years old, I took my older sister's radio cassette player and I took it apart, and I was like, I'm going to make this a fan. I'm going to put a speaker inside a toilet. I'm going to have a mic, and I'm going to talk to people when they're sitting and having. So get out of there, you know. So literally, my mom was so pissed off because when she went to the toilet, I was speaking with her on the microphone, and she had a speaker inside the toilet. So I always started very early into tech, and you know, even if back in the 80s, the tech wasn't really as advanced as it is today, but still you had technology. And I think my passion for technology and passion for music combined made me wanting to be like a producer stroke DJ. You know, back then, a superstar DJ didn't mean anything because you didn't have superstar DJ. Superstar DJ didn't exist. You know, like the DJ was just another staff member in the bar or club, whatever, that, you know, was playing music. It wasn't really somebody you looked up to in that kind of way. It's like, you know, so I never wanted to become a DJ because DJ was a cool thing to do or be or whatever. My passion came from a completely different angle. And then, you know, my passion is because, as I just told you earlier, I started buying my speakers and my turntables, and that I didn't know what I was thinking. I just followed my instinct. I like this. How can we make more parties? Oh yeah, let's do that ourselves, you know. And that led to another thing. And then when I moved back to Sweden, 91, I was living in this kind of small little kind of student home, and I was like, so basically, I left my house when I was 15. I left my mum and my dad when I was 15, and I had my own place in Gothenburg. And because my mum moved to Los Angeles, my dad, I didn't really have a good relationship with my dad. He was in Sweden, so we said, fuck it, I'm old enough. I'm sure I know what I'm doing, so I'm gonna see how it is to live by myself. So I got this little flat in Gothenburg in Sweden, and I was working at the journalism school as a sound engineer. I had I started as an internship when I was 16, and I was an intern for 2 years. And then after 2 years, they employed me for another 3 years. So I was staying 5 years at the journalism school. So I started as an intern, and at the end, I was like an editor, like a video editor and a cameraman and all sorts of things. But during this period, when I was making the money while working at the journalism school, I started buying all this gear. So because being a producer back then in the early 90s meant that you have to buy your 909, your 303, your 808, your Junos, your sound mix. I mean, it was an expensive story. I even take loans to buy certain equipment, because now you just have a laptop and then you're ready to go. Then you're a producer. But then it was an expensive thing. And then to finance my studio costs, I started throwing parties. So I started doing all these illegal raves in Gothenburg. Started as a smaller bunker, like with 50, 60 people. And then it grew. My last parties I would do before I moved to London back in 95, 94, I had 1,500 people at my parties. We just broke into warehouses and just like, okay, let's do a party. And looking back then, maybe health and safety maybe wasn't the best idea, but, back then it was great. We had so much fun. And it was the early rave era in Sweden. And, rave, that techno culture was brand new. So everybody was so excited. And I financed, by doing parties, I stopped buying more equipment, and buying more equipment meant more producing, more, music could be done. And then in 96, I signed to Sony Columbia on another project called Fused with another guy called Samuel. And then in 98, I moved to London. And it was actually Simon that I met in Sweden. And he was DJing at a small party in Gothenburg. I was DJing too. And then I gave him a cassette of music I was doing at the time. And he signed that together with another guy that he was working at the time to Sony Music for a few years. And then that led to us started working together in 2003, 5 years after I moved to London. So it's been a long journey, and it's been fun. And, I never really had another job than music. And so I only know kind of music, apart from the restaurant I just opened, and which, is difficult in its own way, but it's the end of the day, it's food. As long as you nail your food, you got good chefs, you're good. And now, looking at my studio now, it's so downscaled compared to how I used to have. I still got my MS-20, which I love. I mean, it's missing 2 keys on it, but I love it so much. I had it since like the 90s, early 90s. And now I've got it like 303, which I use a lot still. I got my Moog in the rack. My speakers are the most important things. I got my Adams 8.3s, and then I got my small Genelecs here. And then I just got a big screen, like a 32-inch screen. And, that's what I do. It's in a small two. Yeah, it's great. I love it because amazing, yeah. I like it to have it clean on my desk when I work, and then when I do some keyboards, I just take it off, and then some bass lines or whatever, and then that's it. So it's very minimalistic. I like it very clean compared to how my studio looked. I got some old photos that I found at the day with my studio in Sweden, and it was like I had a 32-channel desk, like a Soundcraft, whatever it's called, and then I had 2 Juno 106s, 1 808, 1 909, 2 303s, the TX81Z. I had a 101. I mean, I had so much gear that I regret that I sold, because it's would have been so cool to have some of that today, but unfortunately, I had to move to London, and that was expensive. And I sold my 909 to get a driver's license. So that's it. So in a way, it's kind of was worth it,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of it now. So now I'm working on some bits. I'm producing a guy called Jeremiah. He's doing some kind of Afro house kind of stuff. So that's what I'm working at the moment. And yeah, I like to work on different things. So I'm producing some people, and then doing the click stuff. And then I'm as I said, I'm working on some more disco stuff that are under my own name. And yeah, that's kind of it, really. Keeping busy, basically.
So when is this disco stuff gonna be able? When are we gonna be able to listen to something?
So basically, I signed this project off to a label here in the UK literally just a few months before the lockdown, or when the COVID happened. And as you know, the dance scene is so reliant on parties and clubs, and you know what I mean. There's so many virtual DJ sets you can watch. It's like, okay, it's fun for 10 minutes, and then you're standing in your living room listening to this dude playing, behind or in front of a green screen. It's not really happening, is it? I mean, it's a kind of temporarily fix, I guess. Everybody has to come up with some solutions, but ultimately, standing in a club with a bunch of, another 200, 300, 400, 500 people, you can't beat that feeling. And the disco project is very much led into the dance floor kind of thing. So we just put everything on hold, and I think many other DJs have done it. It feels like when I went on Beatport the other day, and I'm just looking through and like, there's quite a lot of out there, and I think people are not really. I think many people are holding back on the good stuff because they don't want to waste their best track they've done in years. Or there's going to go wasted, of some dude is going to play it on some kind of virtual DJ set, And then, itself, when the track is a year old or 2 years old, oh, it's last year's track. Even if it was a good track, it's still last year's track, So I think, many people are kind of doing that, just kind of holding off. And same thing, I go on Netflix, it's just, and I think surely it must be the same thing. People just holding off because, you can't have big sets with, like proper locations because everybody has to wear masks, and you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't be two people under one roof, and, all these things. It's just a bit boring at the moment, as we all know. But now I'm really excited that here in England, at least on the 21st of June, they're going to ease all restrictions, and festivals are going to be able to happen again. Clubs are going to be able to open again, so, that's going to mean that we can start focusing on getting at least the dance scene kind of back on track here in the UK. I mean, and it's going to happen the same thing around the world, of course. So, yeah, so to answer to your question is hopefully very soon. Yeah. But yeah, so I'm literally, I've got 3 records that I've got on hold at the moment. So one is kind of a shout out to kind of Bee Gees kind of era a little bit, kind of very disco, but in a way I don't like comparing myself to other producers or DJs or whatever, but it's a bit more, it's not completely traditional disco, not pure disco as many purists are doing at the moment. They're like, everything should be how it was back then. But so, like, for instance, like a Purple Disco Machine, he's kind of more taking the disco, but he's putting a more modern twist to it, which I like. So I like that kind of twist to it. So the old school, but you have those moments that you find in new productions, So yeah, that's the kind of vibe I'm going for. So yeah, so as soon as I got anything, I'll send some crops to you, for sure.
Amazing.
So are you DJing at the moment, or are you producing, or are you kind of
just producing at the moment because I wanted to start with that and see where it leads me. Like, I spent a lot of years on just, as you know, like just playing, and I always wanted to do something on my own, but I never had the time. Or I did have the time, but I was like a bit of an ego thing as well because I was so young, and then I was like thinking, oh, why would I do it? because I'm doing so well. But now, like, I feel that I'm mentally ready to do some serious projects. So I'm like just sitting at home and doing the music.
Okay, and what kind of vibe is it? Is it more kind of disco house, or is it full-on techno?
It's basically what you described. It's a disco vibe, but I'm trying to kind of put it to a modern sound, like basically maybe just sampling some stuff and then doing some like my stuff with it.
Yeah. Okay. No. Yes. Cool. I think that seems to be working, because it's just so many old disco records you can listen to, because they're great and all that stuff, but for me they lack a little bit of excitement.
Yeah.
Because the technology has allowed you to produce the records in a much more exciting way today. Back then, you had your bass, you had your guitar, you had your strings, and you couldn't really do all those trickeries that you can do today. And it's cool to have elements of the old school era as well, but today I think I just miss be able to do that. So that's why my sound, like many other producers, are taking a modern twist to the kind of the disco sound, and it's massive. Obviously, you have Glitterbox and Defected. Glitterbox is a good example of how much of that kind of sound is coming back. And so it's cool. And obviously, with Shapeshifters and stuff, we used to kind of produce that in a way when we had Lola's thing back in 2004. Even 2003 when we produced it. Is like it's kind of that coming back in a way, really. And disco house is always going to come in different shapes and forms. It might not be mainstream, but it's always going to be cooking somewhere in the scene. So that's the kind of vibe, really. So it's just finding the time, between producing, little bit baby, having a daughter, as is time consuming, and then obviously at the restaurant, and just life is busy. It's just finding the space. But it's music, so you always find a few hours here and there. So all good.
Well, I think we got it covered.